This is the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. 3, 2, 1. And welcome everybody to this episode of Coming Home with John Allen. I am your humble host, John Allen. And before I introduce my lovely guest, I want to let you all know that wherever you find this episode, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever, if you look in the description of the episode, you will see a place where you can donate. I enjoy your donations. I'm not dependent on them, but I do enjoy them. So it helps me to keep things going. It helps me put a little bit more into the production. So your contributions are greatly appreciated. And one other thing I want to say, I always forget to say this, share these episodes. If you're watching it repeatedly, that means that you enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, share the love with someone else, okay? And here we are with my lovely guest, Trine Sveia. We were talking about how I should introduce you. I know I want to introduce you as one of the best huggers I've ever experienced in my life. You give great hugs.
Thank you. Oh, that's an honor to be introduced that way.
And I mean it. And I've been enjoying your hugs from time to time for 20 years. I've been in Norway for 20 years. Next month, it'll be 20 years.
Wow,
that's a long time. So that's a 20-year friendship, a 20-year acquaintance that we've had. And it's always been this off and on type of thing. The last time I saw you was, I think you came here to visit Snoopy at one point. But before that, the last time I'd seen you was when I did stand-up and you were there in the crowd. So it's just this off and on. Every once in a while I see you around, but it's always good to see you. And it's great to have you here as my guest.
Thank you.
Yeah. You are quite the interesting person. Is it wrong to call you spiritual? You're not religious, but you do have spiritual.
It's very right to call me spiritual.
That's very right, yeah. What does spiritual mean to you?
It's actually still a good question because I'm trying to define.
Isn't it quite the fluid thing?
Yeah. But for me, at the moment, it's connection to something that feels bigger than me.
Something that feels bigger than you. That is spirituality. I agree with that.
I think so.
Yeah.
And for me, it's easier to use the term spiritual because that doesn't really have any boundaries to it in that way. It's more I can own my own experience. Exactly.
The term religious seems to have a very negative air about it. Many people automatically, when they hear the word religious or when they think of religion, they think of religion in the extremist or the fundamentalist aspect of it. That squared off, very clear borders. This is right, this is wrong.
Yeah.
I am right, you are wrong.
And at the same time, we have had a long history of so much shame and things that comes with being religious that I think we're trying to shrug it off and become more free. And for me, at least, then it's easier to call it spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah, again, that word religion, I have no problem with it. I consider myself a religious person. But it would be pretty ignorant to not acknowledge that word carries with it a lot of negativity these days. And I wonder why that is. What is this thing about people and their beliefs where if they believe it, it's 100% right? And the great comic Norm Macdonald, may he rest in peace, he said something. He used to say this a lot. How can you be sure of anything? How can you know that you are 100% correct in everything that you think? Now, your core beliefs, you may feel that 100%, but how can you be 100% sure of the outcome of your core beliefs? Isn't that such a fluid thing? Isn't life such a learning experience? And as we learn, we come to new realizations, which means that what we thought we knew before that was complete was incomplete. Yeah. Am I right?
And we change. I think maybe there is some fear underneath there.
Yeah.
Is it if my truth is only mine? Isn't that a bit dodgy or what? Insecure? I mean, can I not share my truth with everybody? Doesn't it become more true when everybody finds the same truth?
Well, sure, and I don't see anything wrong with people sharing their beliefs. But again, and I think maybe this is true, more so true in Norway than it is for me back home in the States. Gosh, I'm sweating. That sun outside really got you. Yeah, it is summer today. What was I going to say? No, there's nothing wrong with sharing one's beliefs with people. I believe in sharing one's beliefs, but there's different ways to do that. You have the evangelical Christian who practically shoves it down your throat. The dogma of it. But then you have the more casual, laid-back Buddhist, Taoist type, where they live their beliefs more by example, and maybe their example is their form of teaching their beliefs.
But if you look at people who are religious and spiritual, they are very much similar, I find. I can have the best conversation with my aunt, who is very religious. She believes in God.
Yeah.
But she's also very spiritual. So we can meet on that level. And I think if you go within different religions and you find what I would define spiritual people within religion, then we all come to many of the same experiences.
Absolutely. If people dare to have the conversation, if people get beyond the dogma and the hatred and the politics and religion are melting together.
And lots of politics.
Well, one of my favorite conversations I've ever had in my entire life, forget about my podcast, one of my favorite conversations was with a gentleman. I think I told you about him on the phone. Espen Jørgensen is his name. Hi, Espen, if you're watching. He's a follower of the Tao, which is fairly far from Christianity, and yet every time he and I talk, it's almost like when we end a conversation, it's closing the book. And then when we see each other again, we're opening the book and we're starting right on that page again. And we talk about all things philosophical, religious, spiritual. And he holds the record for my longest podcast episode, 4 hours. We talked about spirituality and belief systems and all that stuff. And I think that those are the kind of conversations I'm very proud of my conversations with Espen, because to me it's a manifestation of this thing that says that spirituality and religion is universal. You may call it God, you may call it Allah, you may call it Mother Nature, but there's a universality. There's a common language, a common set of beliefs within all of these different religions and belief systems.
Yeah, and I think actually it's to be human, because I think we all have these experiences, but we just name them differently.
I think so, but I think it's all the same thing. Just like Norwegian is a language, English is a language, but both of them are communication. Taoism is a belief system. Christianity is a belief system. Sorry about that, people. I am the unprofessional podcast host who has my telephone on. Yeah. That's my son calling, but he has a mother who he can call who's not busy right now. No, but it's all under the same roof. I think all spirituality, all belief systems have originated from one place. So I don't think it's wrong for a Christian to say there is only one God, and yet you have a Muslim who also say there's only one God or Allah. There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the Hindi who says there are many gods.
The many faces of creation.
I think it is a reflection of the same thing, which is love, unity, communication, dialogue. Openness. Really. Not the least.
Which we're practicing now. Is this maybe the deepest you and I have ever talked? We haven't really talked. Whenever we see each other. Sort of snippets of being quite deep, and then we don't have the time to continue most of the time.
I think the longest I ever spoke with you was after that stand-up gig, and we walked back.
Yeah.
And walked across the bridge, and then after the bridge you went to the train station and I went home. Yeah.
And I was in the middle of ups and downs, and my life was changing a lot, so we had a lot to talk about.
Well, you have I don't want this to sound bad, but it seems like you come to a crossroads in your life several times. In other words, you're always evolving. That's whenever I talk about you with Snoop, and you come up a lot in our household, we love you. Okay. But one of the things that I say consistently is that it seems like you are always changing. And that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
You're always developing, in other words.
It almost made me cry now, because I find it such an honor to be seen for my wish to be able to go further.
If I could sum you up, I would say you would have made a great hippie in San Francisco around 1967.
Okay, I must say that we just got a hippie van. Actually, we're going to pick up in Tromsø.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. See?
So I'm trying.
My powers of observation. No, but you seem to always be, I don't know if it's because you're always searching, but you're at the very least, you must be open to change because your life has taken so many abrupt turns.
Yeah, there's something in me that's a bit, if I may use words that people relate to religion, I feel sometimes I'm a bit of a Kali, which is a goddess.
Yeah.
And she can just ruin everything to rebuild. I have that energy in me sometimes when I feel I'm really
burn all
stuck.
the bridges.
Yeah, I'm really stuck and I really need to change things. Luckily, I'm getting a bit more grown up, not older, but so I'm realizing it's not a very good way to do things all the time. To just
but it does feed the adventurous spirit.
Yes, and it opens up for new things.
Yes,
in a way that maybe just small changes don't.
Small changes are boring. We want the drastic,
I'm not really a drama queen, but I do like the fire behind the.
Well, you're a person who enjoys the challenges. I'm that way as well. Of course, everybody gets down and depressed from time to time, but I think in general there are found people who enjoy that challenge, and sometimes they may consciously or subconsciously do things to bring about those challenges, and again, that doesn't have to be a negative thing, because if it leads to growth and more knowledge, what's negative about that?
But that is a challenge that I find. It's difficult for people in general to take the fact that this is going to hurt a bit. I have to rip the Band-Aid off. Yeah, it's going to hurt a lot, but maybe the outcome will be a better place. And most people, they shy a bit away from. Well,
not everybody's familiar with pain. No. People have an idea of what they think it is, and they fear it, so they avoid it.
And I think emotional pain is something we really don't know how to relate to. Yeah, because. We work so hard to suppress it. Yeah, there is no room for it in society. Yeah. We are supposed to manage everything,
mental health issues are so taboo still.
Amazing.
This is Mental Health Month. By coincidence, it is. Yeah. May is Mental Health Month, and it's still such a taboo thing. People shy away, especially men. I think men shy away from talking about their mental health, whether it's in a positive light or whether they're talking about the confrontations and challenges that they have. People just don't want to talk about it. Shove that away. Push through. Yeah. You'll be okay. Don't think about that.
No, it's just get over it.
Or get over it. The classic.
But I think a good way to get over something is to actually really experience it first and take in, what does this actually do to me?
What does it do to me? What does it do for me?
Yes.
Or what does it do against me? But then how do I counter that?
And what action should I have?
Yeah.
Or do I need to have one? Sometimes just
That's a good point.
Just sitting with an emotion can actually solve a lot of things. That's what I've learned lately. And I've been one of those who's really, really not wanted to feel.
Really? You?
Yeah, because
that is not the image I have of you at all.
No, but it's like we're allowed to feel happy. Yeah. So I feel a lot of happiness.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the natural thing for me, because I am easily happy.
Yeah.
But being angry, that's not very good. And I had never actually missed anything or anyone in my entire life until quite recently.
Really?
And when I was hit with that emotion, it really crushed me. I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know how to respond. And my first thing is to try to get the things that I miss into my life and really fight for it. But that doesn't necessarily, that's a force that's not very good. That's
it's not.
No, and it can be quite violent.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's heavy. It's a heavy burden. Yeah, absolutely.
But me being able to just, after a while, sit down and acknowledge that I miss this.
Yeah.
How do I get this into my life without forcing it? How can I open myself so that this actually comes into my life?
Yeah, because the question comes then, why do I miss this? Why do I feel this way when I miss this?
And is it only one thing that can cover this need? Usually,
yeah.
you think you have the solution in a thing or a person or an experience. And then if you sit, or at least in my case, I sat with emotion and I found that this is something I can find elsewhere as well. I don't need to go there.
See, that's a great observation. That there's not a lot of people who come to that conclusion that there is in fact something that can replace it to a greater or lesser degree. Most people just sit there and continue to miss it. And you see that a lot in toxic relationships where there's a breakup, but the toxicity is still there because one person is continuing to fight to get that relationship back. You see that a lot in divorces and things like that. And it's that's not healthy. I think missing things can be healthy, but that type of missing someone or something is quite unhealthy because it turns into this cycle, this loop.
And you have the first time I actually understood this book, Victoria, the Norwegian writer wrote, where she actually dies from missing the man she wants. And in a way,
must have been a heck of a dude.
Yeah, but in the same time, I sort of, because you neglect yourself, you get so focused on one thing that you miss, that you might actually miss out on living. That's actually my interpretation. Okay, you don't physically normally die, but you miss out on living.
That's right.
Because you're so hung up in this one thing you miss. And in the future, not to mention, because this thing you miss might appear in the future.
And you'll miss it if you're still hung up on this.
Yeah.
Well, it's about being open. And that goes back to again, how I talk about you when I talk about you with Snoop. You seem so open, so receptive to change, and possibly you are a person who actively seeks change at certain points in your life. I'm not trying to psychoanalyze you, but is that true that you seek it sometimes? Is there an element of being dissatisfied in your life that leads you to seeking these abrupt changes?
Yeah, I think that's a good conclusion. I also have a friend who told me that, you're one of those people who don't really enjoy things being as they always are.
Yeah.
And I've realized that in working as a leader as well, I'm very good at building and creating. But when everything is just supposed to be maintained, it bores me a bit. So that's maybe a bit of my personality. That, okay, then we need to create something more, or go further or deeper, or...
I just have to call Snoopy and tell her to call our son.
I'll have a drink.
Because he may think she's sleeping, so he won't call her. One second, people. This is the way the podcast is from time to time. Snoop, can you call Harlan? He's called me a couple of times, and he may think you're... Okay, great. Goodbye. Bye. Hey, it's called Coming Home with John Allen. So when you're home with John Allen, sometimes the telephone rings, okay?
It's good to have a normality about things, actually.
No, that's why I like why I like doing this so much, because it's nice to work from home, and it's nice to make my home part of my work. It's a two-sided thing here.
There's something about openness there as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And honesty.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you this, because I'm not going to edit that out. A lot of podcasters or broadcast people would edit that out, but I want people to know, hey, this is. Life. I mean, I'm home. This is in my home. This is my life. I do have a wife and 2 kids here, and so be it.
And they deserve your attention as well.
They sure do get it. Snoopy was just teasing me yesterday. Well, speaking about missing people, she works her night shift. She comes home. We'll talk for a little while, maybe have breakfast or whatever, and then she'll go to bed. And then I'll do my work. Maybe I'll have a podcast episode. I'll do some reading, writing, or whatever. But there's days like yesterday where I didn't really have too much. Well, I had a lot to do, but I chose not to do it. So I was just kind of sitting around, and kind of subconsciously, because I didn't realize this until Snoopy got up. She got up kind of early yesterday, about 1:00 in the afternoon, which is early after working a night shift. And I jumped up off the couch and practically ran to her and puppy dogged her, following her around as she goes into the bathroom and then gets dressed and all this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I guess I was missing her. Yeah. So she teased me for that.
Oh, she shouldn't.
That's love.
Beautiful.
That's love.
Yeah. And it should be acknowledged, the fact that we sometimes really miss being intimate with people. Not physically. It doesn't have to be physical. People
No,
just,
it can be the conversational. It can be
Yeah.
the
look. Somebody
the
just,
look.
The
Yeah.
look that she gives you is the extra special one that nobody else gives you.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
valuable, and you need
Yeah.
it because
Yeah.
it makes you feel like a man.
Well, those
or
kind
whatever.
and those kind of things manifest themselves when last summer her and the kids went up to our place up in Finnmark, and they were gone for like, I don't know, was it 4 or 5 weeks maybe?
Oh.
And the first few days were great. I was
Good.
loving it.
Cats on the table.
But that went by rather quickly, and I spent a majority of their time up there missing them. And talking about finding things to replace it, that only goes so far, because after a while I was getting bored with being by myself.
Yeah.
And I think if we just magnify that and have several instances of missing things, and on top of it not being able to find replacements, that can lead to a less than healthy mental health.
Yeah. I think also that's one of the things that a lot of people who start a spiritual search start to practice gratefulness.
Yeah.
For what's already there.
Yeah.
Because there will always be something that we want or something that we miss. But that is, again, bringing us out of here and now and putting a strain on us. But being grateful for what we already have.
Yeah.
It's a very good start. And being grateful for the fact that you actually miss your wife
Yeah.
and your children.
And I'm not afraid to admit it.
No, but
you know?
it's I had a period when I quite honestly didn't miss my children at all because I was very, very tired. And it was actually very painful to
Felt
acknowledge.
guilty?
Yeah, it's not mums don't feel that, do they?
Well, at the same time as I can admit that after a couple of weeks I really miss my wife and kids when they're gone, I'll also say that I don't like my kids. I don't like them. I love them.
Yeah, but sometimes
In
we
other
don't
words,
like them.
Exactly. Sometimes we don't like them. Sometimes they do get on our nerves. Sometimes Snoopy gets on my nerves. And I think we need to release ourselves from the guilt of that, because all relationships are dynamic. There's good and bad. There's give and take. There's heavy and light. You know, guilt. I mean, it's a self-imposed limitation. Guilt is a self-imposed pain.
Yeah.
Why do we do that to ourselves?
But I find that we have been made that way.
For a reason?
By society.
By society, just, yeah.
Or if you want to go back to religion as well, because religion is quite old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I read a book that had to do with the connections between society, politics, and religion.
Ah.
And we went back, 5,000 years or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's a very interesting book.
I'd like to read that.
I'll just borrow it to one friend. When I get it back, you'll get it.
Oh, thank you.
It's quite big.
Thank you.
It's called Sacred Pleasure.
Okay.
Politics and
Sacred
religion.
pleasure.
Yeah. Because
That's my kind of reading. I love reading stuff like that. Yeah.
the author, she claims that we were not supposed to have guilt and shame. We were actually supposed to live as who we are.
I would assume she's saying also that to take that thought further, she's saying that it is our bending to the wills of society and suppressing our own will. That is probably what brings on guilt.
Yeah, or we're told that we are wrong. We are as humans,
and we believe it. We're told we're wrong, because we don't have to believe that. We don't have to agree when we're told that we're wrong.
No, exactly.
But we do that maybe because why?
This comes into life when we're very, very small.
Ah.
And of course we inherit it from our parents.
Yes, we do.
And without knowing it, we copy them so much, not in what they say. I mean, we as parents, we really have to watch our steps, because our children, they copy all the things we don't say most.
That's true. Our kids are reading us constantly.
Yeah, so the atmosphere in the room, how you feel inside, the lack of attention or presence or whatever, all of that is what they soak up, and that's what's shaping them a lot more than we're aware of.
A lot more than the words we say, yeah.
So if we don't say the words that match the action, then the words are meaningless.
Yeah.
And we're not aware even what we're giving them.
That's very well said, and I think that is That's a few sentences there that more parents need to hear. I think a lot of parents forget how sensitive children are to the things that are not said.
And the reason they forget is because they've been desensitized themselves.
Desensitize themselves, yeah.
And that's the way to survive.
Well, yeah. If you don't feel the pain, then you keep on marching forward, yeah.
So, yeah. That's also one of the things that I find that I'm searching for now more and more, is to find my own feelings, my own emotions, and allowing that to be a part of my life, so that I become more a whole person.
Yeah.
So I'm not just the half that I probably have been for a very long time.
Yeah.
And not really actually acknowledging or knowing how to acknowledge the part of me that is sensitive and emotional and sometimes needs to be held.
But why do you think it is? Where's the source of that unwillingness to acknowledge that part of your identity?
Well, I'll speak for myself, but I think this is, at least in Norway, very common. We are told that we should just get over it.
Yeah.
Get back up, and you should be strong. You should have stamina. You should be independent.
Yeah.
And for some strange reason in Norway, being independent as a woman is even more, I feel it's even more important, because we have come so far in women's liberation.
Yeah.
So I can't say to my friends that I actually need to have a man. You know, I want to.
Yeah.
And I make myself need him.
Uh-huh.
But that's not really on, is it? I mean, you're a grown, independent woman. You can pay your own bills. Yeah, I can do all that.
Sure.
But he actually gives me something that I need.
Do you think, how common do you think that thought is here in Norway? I have an opinion on that, but I want to hear yours first. How common is that thought from Norwegian feminists that, how do I say it? There's levels to feminism.
Yeah.
Do you think it's gotten out of hand? Do you think it's gone too far to where it has become something detrimental here in Norway?
I find that, again, this is my interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
I find that feminism is not actually feminism. It's women's fight to be allowed to wear trousers and be men. And I have been a big part of that, because when we grew up, we were told that men and women are alike.
Yeah.
And I even thought that myself in my head, that we had the same train of thoughts, which we don't.
Yeah.
I haven't realized that I cannot come from me and understand a man, because I have completely different way of seeing things, because I'm a woman.
Right.
But I find that my path now is to find out what is it to be feminine. You know, what is it to actually have these softer, if you will call them, qualities that I am not allowed to have, because even though I'm allowed to become a policeman or a fireman, I can't actually be a stay-at-home mom and care for my kids.
Yeah, somewhere along the line, that whole thing of being a stay-at-home mother has become a bad thing. You're not supposed to want that.
No.
According to many feminists. Not all.
And you're not paid for it, and you're not acknowledged for it.
Yeah.
So, and you're not producing anything, but what you are producing is a home where people can come and find nourishment and rest and love.
Yeah.
And that's a part of being human that we need. That's the other part that needs to come together with productivity and efficiency and the masculine energy, which we were discussing earlier. I maybe should call it something else than feminine and masculine, because we tend to put this on gender. I'm not trying to find out how to be a woman.
Right.
I'm trying to find out about my softer feminine sides, which I also find when I speak to you and I meet your openness. It's also a feminine quality. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't say that you're a very feminine man. so the words confuse us maybe.
But I understand, and I think people can understand that. Being a man doesn't mean that you're supposed to walk around with your fists clenched and you're supposed to yell at people and you're supposed to beat your chest all the time. That's part of being a man at times. the protector
have
of the
full
home.
control of your emotions.
And there's a time for that. There's a time for having full control of your emotions. But then there's also a time to be soft.
Yeah.
The soft will round off the hardness in a man. And you have to have those round edges. Otherwise, you become what? Abrasive. And abrasive, where are you going to get with that? How many relationships are you going to be able to build with that?
Yeah, and what are you missing out about yourself? I think
absolutely.
The biggest loss is actually the personal loss.
I think so. And some people would think that that's selfish. Stuff in me and my, I don't think there's anything wrong with having focus on oneself first. For me, it's almost like a mantra. I want to become a better, stronger person, so that will then condition me and put me in a better position from which I can help others, my family, and myself. Let me be stronger so that I can give more, in other words. So there's that combination. Stronger is quite clearly and traditionally a masculine thing. Giving is traditionally a feminine thing. So this is about being in control and aware of all sides of myself. But it seems today that some elements of the feminist movement want to take away the search for softness and focus only on the hardness and what you don't need. I don't need a man. You don't need a man. You're making that money. Yeah. You can pay for your own home. And yes, you can do that stuff, but what about...
But it has, it has had a purpose to go through that phase.
I think so.
Because I now choose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're aware of all the aspects, so now you can choose.
And I am free in the way that I can choose. So that was necessary, but I think we need to take it the next step. I think it should be that a nurse should be paid as well as a computer expert. A traditional very female and very male occupation. I think that.
I do too. And
that is equality.
Yeah.
Not female liberation or whatever, because there can be male nurses.
Yeah.
And I think that the home should be valued a lot more. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the woman has to make the home.
We talked the other day about how it's become a rare thing, at least among families here in Norway, it's become a rare thing for the family to sit down to dinner. And traditionally it has been the female in the house who has ensured that would happen. Do you think that because that tradition is fading, do you think that is because of feminism gone astray? This feminism that we're talking about that almost wants to erase what is feminine in females? I
think it's wrong maybe to label it as feminism, because it's just I think society hasn't really stopped and felt this and acknowledged it, and that's why we get a lot of mental problems as well, I think.
Sure.
We just now everybody's working, so it doesn't really matter if it's the woman or the man who makes the home. So you can't really call it feminism in that way anymore.
That's quite true. Yeah.
We just lost the softer values that makes us human. We all become more or less machines instead.
Yeah. And I don't want anyone to, and I don't want you to think that I'm criticizing the feminist movement or that I am anti-feminist. Quite the opposite. I'm a feminist. I believe in equality among the genders, regardless of how much of, regardless of the blending of genders, which is coming more and more to light these days. So it's not that, but I do have observations that make me question the direction of the classic feminist movement. Has it gone astray? Are they focusing on the right things? And I ask and I question, because it's not for me to answer. It's just observations.
Yeah, and I think it's a good question, because it's what I'm saying as well. So for me, it's a good question. I think it's no longer feminism. Maybe.
What would you call it?
Society
at large.
Yeah, there's something. in the bottom there, there's a bit still fighting for rights that the rights that we were fighting for when the feminist movement started. We have got them in many ways, but we just forgot to fight for a lot of things. That is a part of being. We haven't fought to be allowed to have the need to be soft in women. We fought for the right to be able to have balls.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a very good energy. I mean, I feel very strong.
Sure, absolutely.
When I feel a bit masculine.
Empowered, empowerment, women deserve that as much as men, absolutely.
And it's a rush when I have a day and I've done that and I've done that and I've done that and I fixed that and I feel really good. Yeah. But you can't run that energy all the time because then you hit the brick wall, which so many people do these days. Yeah. You have to
Men
stop.
and women. Yeah.
You have to stop. You have to breathe. You have to eat.
Reevaluate. I believe in reevaluation. Continuous not constant, but continuous. Often stop and reevaluate the situation as it stands. And that means you've got to breathe and reflect a little bit. Introspection. I love that word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't do that while you're on the move.
Can't. You have to stop.
A feminist said, fast forward is not a direction. And it's a very good saying. Or speed is not a direction, it's the same. Yeah. So sometimes, stop. And stillness, breathing, we do that. A lot of people now start doing yoga. Yeah. And I was just thinking about it, sitting in the car on the way here. It's the strangest things. People do mindfulness, they do yoga, they do meditation to empty their head. Mm. But I do not want to be an airhead woman,
Come on.
This is weird. Why do I have this? It's wrong to sometimes just sit there and be empty in the head. No, it's not.
It's that's when we recharge. I mean, that happens every day. Or on our 24-hour cyclist, every day we lay down and go to sleep for the night. Mm-hmm. Why not get a little bit more of that, and do it consciously? And I like to call it become unconscious consciously. Take that time. Look at it this way. We all deserve at least 10 minutes a day to rest our mind. And whether that's meditation, reflection of some sort, introspection, as I like to call it, yoga,
just sitting,
training out in my garage or whatever, sitting still and just doing nothing and try not to think of anything. We deserve that.
And I think it's a way to lessen our burden. I think that, before, when we had different occupations, people were physically very overstretched. Yeah. And today, we don't use the body enough, but we are mentally very overstretched. Yeah. And there needs to be some kind of balance here.
I think we have to be conscious of that and then do very concrete things, take concrete steps, very determined steps to find that balance so that it becomes a part of our lifestyle. We make some lifestyle changes and then all of a sudden it's effortless. It's just the way we live, right? Which is more healthy and it puts us in a better position and condition from which we can help ourselves, others, our family. It all goes around. Yeah. I think.
Yeah. I love talking about these things because they're taking up so much of my life these days.
So do I. And I don't know there's no reason for it. Actually, I haven't really thought about it. I should think about why this has been. I'm podcasting less often now. There was a time where I would do 3 and 4 episodes a week. And now it's down to roughly 1, maybe 2 times a week. And I don't know why I've fallen into that pattern, because doing this gives me so much. I was telling you, I like to do it best when people come to, but doing it by video is, it's the same thing, just in a less, it's a more watered down thing, but it gives me so much. And I wonder why I don't do that. I haven't really thought about it, but I have really cut down on the number of episodes I do. There's no reason for that, especially when it gives me so much.
Yeah. I think that's something you can.
Yeah, you see, I'm thinking out loud. But see, in these moments of introspection, basically, I'm conducting a session of introspection of myself right now out loud. That's what I do. all of a sudden I'll be like, hey, I'm not podcasting that often. Why is that? And then I'll just run it through.
What is it that moves me or don't move me?
Yeah, I'm not in the best physical shape. I had so much trouble with my shoulder and all that. So I am walking around in a lot of pain. So maybe that's it. Maybe I haven't mastered this physical pain that I'm going through, which has probably led me to isolate myself a little bit. That's probably the answer right there.
It's quite taxing to go around having pain as well.
It is. And here I am with you as a friend who's such a great massage therapist, acupuncture. What else do you do?
I do reflexology.
Reflexology, yeah. I remember when I went to you, this was way back in 2005, maybe. Something. My neck was stiff, and you
did some needlework.
And it changed my life almost literally. I didn't know that I could be so quickly free from pain. So this lady knows what she's doing.
It was beautiful. You also, that's actually something I notice when I give treatments.
Yeah.
People who practice yoga, for instance, or dance, not to mention, because that is there's something, some people say that dance is the top yoga, especially free dance. They have a better flow of energy.
Oh, that's believable.
So when I put the needles in, something happens in a very different way.
Yeah.
Now I don't know how much you dance or do yoga, but I know that you have the physical awareness.
Absolutely.
So that makes everything happen in a different way.
For me, my physical and mental aspects, physical, mental, and emotional, are all tied together. If there's something painful physically, which there has been for years now, then I feel that mentally and emotionally as well, and vice versa. If I have a great day with Snoopy and the babies, and a lot of good family moments and whatnot, then something happens with that physical pain as well. So it's all intertwined, and I work on that actively. When I go out to my gym and train, I'm not just out there grunting and sweating. I'm also feeling, evaluating, thinking, introspection again, where I go inward and feel what's happening with me and to me and for me while I'm doing this.
Meditation and actually
absolutely. In that sense, what I do when the training I do to make me be able to squat 350 kilos is not that far from what maybe a 60-kilo woman does when she sits and crosses her legs and starts a yoga session
and tries to shut her head off.
And exactly,
because that's the focus we need, whether it's physical training or mental training or emotional training.
It's all intertwined, and they're not that different from one another. Of course, you can be a powerlifter or a bodybuilder who's just a meathead, but you're selling yourself short, because that connection that those strength athletes have with their bodies can be incorporated into their thought process, and it can be.
And they have a lot of knowledge about how the system works. Yeah. Which is actually, again, a feminine quality, to be in your body.
Yes, exactly.
Which is, I find that very interesting, because in religion, the woman is the temptress.
Yeah.
And she is in her body.
Yeah.
And she's sensual.
Yeah. Stop feeding me those apples, Eve.
Yeah. And that's also been suppressed.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to be in our bodies. And that's also that's why I choose spirituality maybe over religion, because I am a very in my body person.
Yeah.
And I find that I have a life force that is physically in my body. And if I'm having a good day, I know it shows that I'm having a good day. Yeah. How I walk.
Oh, sure.
How I smile.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then maybe I am a bit of a temptress, because it's very attractive meeting people who enjoy being present in their body.
Yeah.
And that has to do with men as well, of course. If you see a man who's enjoying being in his physical body.
Absolutely. It shows. People know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not supposed to be a good thing. And that it's less shameful and it's easily acceptable that we're in our head, in our thought process.
Yeah.
And that's very tiring to stay there. We were just saying we do need a break sometimes, and breathing and coming into our bodies, and not being logic or understanding anything, just feeling. Because inside here, in the physical body, we also have a lot of knowledge, wisdom.
Yeah. Sure.
And if a strong man knows his body, he has a lot of knowledge and wisdom. But
I think so, yeah.
maybe he hasn't studied, maybe he hasn't got a bachelor. It doesn't really matter, because there is so much wisdom within. But we're not allowed to trust that.
Yeah, and it's kind of that thing that society, when a lot of people see a big, strong, muscular guy, they automatically put him in a category. Oh, he's dumb, he's selfish, he's very preoccupied with himself.
And he loves himself.
And he loves himself. But there's a lot of times that is true, but I think there are more times where that is far from true. This could be a man, this is likely a man who, as he knows his body, he knows his mind as well. As he sharpens and strengthens his body, he has sharpened and strengthened his mind through discipline, through planning, to say the least. Imagine the planning it takes
to go. Of sacrifice to
absolutely. And through that sacrifice brings a lot of not only self-awareness, but awareness for those around them. How is this sacrifice affecting my family and my friendships and things like that? So this big, dumb, ignorant power lifter may be the smartest man that you'll see, for the next 48 hours, but you missed it because you judged them. You had this is something I've been wanting to ask you about for a few years now. I want to say it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. You had a series of photographs that you put out on Instagram, which were they were sexy, but they were also they made people think. They made people wonder. They made people admire you for not just for the body, totally naked or 90% naked, depending on the picture. It was so much more than that. What was that all about? Why did you do it, and what was the intention with that?
Thank you for asking.
And what did it do for you?
Yeah, actually, it was in my
beautiful pictures. Me and Snoopy talked about it for months after that. Yeah,
it's a very good person who took the pictures as well. She has all the credit for meeting me. It's a part of me experience or investigating into what is feminine. And I've been meeting people in circles, in ceremonies, and that's been part of my travel or path for the last years. And they talk a lot about goddesses.
Yeah.
And for me, that is archetypes.
Yeah.
It's not. I do not bow down to a goddess. But
no sort of deity, but it's.
But I have this archetype within me. Jung would recognize this. The psychiatrist
Carl Jung.
Yes. Yeah. Because I have the mother in me. There's no doubt. I have 3 children. I know I have a very strong mother in me.
Yeah.
I have the temptress. Yeah. I have the Kali, as I mentioned. I have the warriors. No doubt.
One specific photo comes to mind from that. Yeah,
It's a good one.
Yeah.
And all these bits of me are part of my personality. And I said to this woman, I knew she took pictures, and I said, would you mind portraying the different archetypes with me?
Those were representations of the archetypes.
Because I want to embody them.
Yeah.
In my own way. And she was very happy because she was a bit tired of taking pictures of
what kind of pictures had she been?
Birds,
nature.
Birds and nature, yeah. So
what's her name, by the way? Give her credit.
Helen.
Because I followed her for a while on Instagram. Yeah. Helen.
And the name is good. Bergan.
Bergan. Yes.
Helena.
Check her out, people.
Yeah. She has very some of her pictures are really powerful.
Yeah.
Very emotional.
Well, the ones she took of you are definitely powerful. And again, it's above and beyond the sexual display. You know, it wasn't just the temptress there. Again, they were photos that made people think, made me think, you know, made me, it brought about a new, I don't want to say a new respect because I've always respected you, but it made, I don't know, it just made me look at you differently. And when I say different, I mean that in a positive sense. Were you frightened to put that out there? Because that's quite literally revealing. It's very brave.
Yeah,
it's a brave gesture.
It was both, because I think I had a need to show these sides of myself.
You wanted to express something.
Yeah. So it wasn't really. It wasn't a challenge in that, but it was a challenge to be able to go through and taking the pictures. You know?
Okay.
Because that was the nakedness.
Yeah.
Not the physical nakedness, but actually stepping into the role of the warrior.
Yeah.
The warriors.
Yeah.
You know, that's the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And be there, embody it, and feel it. And I actually did a really strange thing with one of those pictures, because I sent one to each of my children. And I wrote, "This woman is within your mother.
What kind of
if
response?
you ever need protection."
If you ever need protection, I love
Yes.
it. I love it. Yeah.
No, I think they were a bit blown away. But it just, you know, I needed to show more of me, because I am digging out and finding more of me.
My favorite one of those photos, are they still up, by the way? I want to say didn't one of them get flagged by Instagram for too much skin or something?
I don't know. They're on my Instagram, some of them anyway.
How do people find you on Instagram?
No, it's me, Trine Sveia.
I'll write it down so they can see it in the description.
And they might pop up at the Gudinnetempelet when I really start that process.
We're going to talk about that too. No, but my favorite photo was one, you were kind of like crouched down. I want to say like your legs were crossed in a way and you were kind of down on your haunches and your arms were out and you had like kind of a golden, it seemed like there was like a kind of a goldish brown hue to the photo, and you just looked so badass.
Oh yeah, that's the Kali one.
That's the Kali one?
That's black and white, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And
you just looked so badass. and I'm like, wow, that is Trine. Oh, Snoopy, look at this. That's Trine. And she's like, yeah, that's Trine. Yeah.
I think we have that in us, all of us.
I do. And I always wanted to ask you, again, what did that process do for you? Because I see such a therapeutic thing in taking those photos.
Well, actually, when we were taking the Kali photos, that I wanted to bring out the Kali. But for some reason, I just felt so tired.
Oh.
So for me, it was understanding how much of that energy I've already spent.
Okay.
I want to get this done. You know, my being maybe the destroyer of something to build new things. It takes a lot of energy.
Sure.
So I was quite surprised that any of those photos came out decent, because...
Was this a series of sessions or was this one photo session?
We had, we had one day. So it was it's also the last picture, so I probably was a bit tired. But I couldn't bring that fight against all the boundaries, fight against all the A4 system, all that I've done all my life, in more or less. My children keep saying, everybody else does that, but we don't, and you know that, so shut it. And that's a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to stand up for yourself and go your own way.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's what I call my Kali energy.
Okay.
And it was depleted completely, so I needed to, go inside and realize where I was, because I hit the wall not very long after, finding that I went to work and I started crying and I just couldn't stop again. So there was something. Another
crossroads in your life.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of crossroads.
But they are so beautiful when you So
but
put
isn't
them
it though?
behind you?
Because it leads to change, which leads to improvements
Yeah.
across the board.
And I think, okay, I have said out loud, I'm going to be 120 and I'm going to be healthy. So I have a long life, and I wouldn't feel alive if I didn't have all these crossroads.
Yeah.
And if I only become 60, I know that I've lived. And it's painful sometimes, but it's also a part of living. We were also discussing this. We were actually watching a series on Netflix or something, which I'm actually not doing that, but I do it at the moment. and there was somebody really grieving the loss of their son and doing, anything, everything to regain this son, this love. And I was thinking that there's something so wrong when we cannot accept our losses. Yes, and I know you lost a son, so you've been through this. And I hope I'm not tearing up too much.
No.
But it is a part of life.
It is. Yeah.
Even though it is extremely painful. And I have been so lucky. I haven't lost any of mine.
Yeah.
But having the thought that might happen one day. And if it comes by violence, I will be the Kali.
Yeah.
No doubt. There is a lioness who will kill on their behalf. But if it is disease or other things, it is natural, even though it's very, very painful.
Yeah, I when I look at my son's passing, and for those who don't know, he passed from a heroin overdose, which is an act of violence in so many ways, self-imposed in so many ways. But at the same time, he was a victim. I think everyone who suffers from addiction is a victim. They're a victim of unresolved trauma very often. And I can't, in my grief, I cannot sit around and feel sorry for myself thinking that I'm the only one. Oh, woe is me, poor me, because other people have lost maybe 2 or 3 of their kids to addiction. Addiction, especially back in the States, is a big thing. It's very widespread. So I don't want to say I turned on a certain coldness in my heart, but I actively, through Snoopy's help, by the way, actively pulled myself out of being depressed and feeling sorry for myself and feeling guilty, and started thinking about what can I do to use this occurrence, this big crossroads in my life. What can I use this for? And I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but the conclusion that I came to was I can use it by talking about it. Many of my guests have come in, and some of them knowing that I lost my son to an addiction, some of them not knowing, but then they found out through the conversation on the podcast that I lost a son, and they always go, oh, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry for talking about it, because I'm not sorry for talking about it. I want to talk about it. I want to put that out there so that maybe somebody can learn from it. Maybe somebody can find comfort in it. Maybe it can help somebody along in their grieving process, because each loss through addiction is different. There's different aspects. There's different pathways to that horrible end. And sometimes just sorting through these different avenues, which will then tell people how they can possibly deal with it in a different way, maybe a more effective way. So I talk about it and put it out there in the hopes that it can do something for somebody.
Yeah, it's a very...
And I don't know if that's right or wrong. Some people, they think I don't know, but they have accused me of being disingenuous when I talk about it. But what is disingenuous about that? I'm talking about it of my own free will with the hopes that it can bring comfort or guidance to somebody else.
I think it's good to actually talk about dying and death.
Oh, absolutely.
It doesn't have to be...
It's going to happen. We might as well talk about it a little bit.
Yes, and we will
get some feelings about it.
We will lose people we love.
Yeah.
And in a way, if you split up a relationship or you change your job, that is also a death.
That's a death.
So,
yeah.
And it's a different kind of death, but it can impact you in just the same way. And dealing with it emotionally can be the same way, whether it is somebody you love who dies, or whether it's maybe a relationship that dies.
Well, I just think there's a lot to learn from loss, and loss comes in many forms. For me, my biggest loss came in the form of my son dying from a heroin overdose. And I'm still looking for things to learn from it. What else can I do? It's happened and I can't change it.
No.
Now, don't get me wrong. Of course, sometimes it's crippling. Some days it's all I think about. And let's go back to talking about guilt or thinking about guilt. Can you imagine how guilty I feel at times when I'm so depressed about losing Johnny? But I still have these two little knuckleheads here, our kids here that I have to be there for. I still have to be their father in this house. So that's something, and I know that guilt is nothing but detrimental, but it still shows its ugly head in my life.
Yeah, I can understand.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
There is something about acknowledging the fact that you loved him, and you still do. Even though he is gone, there is still love for him. But that doesn't make your heart void of the love you have for the other people you love. It's actually the one thing that makes us grow. The more people we truly love, the bigger we become.
Yeah.
But having room for all the people we have and have love for.
Well, a cynical person would say if you love too many people, then you're going to be hurt too many times because you're going to lose relationships. People are going to die, or people are going to, in those relationships, are going to piss you off, and you're going to cut off contact with them.
That's a choice. And that's a choice.
Isn't it, though?
I've done it very clearly in my own head and my own life.
Yeah.
I do not want to be the one that cuts people off. I will take the pain gladly, because there is so much in being allowed to love. Okay, yes, it is painful.
Sure.
And maybe crippling at times.
Yeah.
But that makes us unemotional. I think if we cut off the feeling of love, then there's no point in having any feelings, because most of the feelings we have come on.
Well, and I think expressing the vulnerability that love can at times bring about can help you deal with the harder times and deal with the guilt. My way of dealing with that guilt is explaining to our two kids here that I am affected by, I am very depressed about their half-brother passing, and it's going to affect me at times. I said that to them. They're old enough to hear it. So I figured it's easier to say that to them, to tell them that here's how it's probably going to be for at least a little while now. I would rather do that than not say anything at all and try and soldier through and be strong and be tough and not show any feelings. That will break a man. That would break me eventually. And it would be false. It would be a false presentation in front of our children here.
And it will break your relationship to your children.
Exactly.
Because they know something is happening, but they don't know what.
In a sense, I would be lying to them, and I can't do that.
And not showing your whole self.
Right, exactly.
As I say, they know that something is going on, and if they're not told what, then they become very insecure. And it's the way you present it, of course. And also knowing how much you actually have love for their half-brother.
Right.
And feeling how much love you have for them.
Exactly.
Doesn't make that love any less.
Yeah.
Maybe that makes them realize how much love you actually have.
Well, I think so. I think you nailed it. I think that's exactly what it is. I want them to know who I am in all of my ragged glory, all of my all of my faults, but also all of my things that make me shine. I want them to see all of that, and that means telling them that, hey, this is what happened. This is how it affected me. I'm working on it, but there's going to be some days where things are like this, I have to be open with them. I'm doing myself and them a disservice, as you said, if I don't.
And you're also opening up for them to be allowed to feel.
Exactly.
So when they will meet these feelings.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Somewhere along the line. And they know that my strong father, he's so strong that he showed his emotions to us. And I also can do that. Doesn't make me any less of a person.
I think as I was growing up, I didn't have enough examples of a well-rounded male figure in my family. I didn't have that.
I don't think a lot of people do,
Yeah.
actually. No, I'm not crying, but yeah, but it is true.
But it is true. It's very true.
And I'm missing a feminine role model as well.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I think
And I think the lack of such roles comes from, it has to do with, I think it has most to do with communication. In other, me as a father, I'm communicating with our two kids here about what has happened and what it has done to me and for me, because they know I talk about it. They know what my podcast is all about and everything. Excuse me. So I think it's important for me to communicate those things to them so that it shows them the good and bad about being a man, the hard and the soft about being a man, everything about being a man. That's important to my son, who is going to grow up to be a man at some point, and it's important to my daughter, who is going to grow up to be a woman who is going to have relationships
with a man.
Exactly. Well, unless she turns out to like women, which is okay. But I would be doing them a disservice. I would be setting them up for a very difficult life if I didn't show them this, because that means that they would just have to figure all that stuff out for themselves. And that doesn't really work.
No. And it makes us feel very lonely, I think.
Well, exactly.
Because
exactly.
only me having these feelings, because nobody else.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people do talk about feelings, but there's a distinction between being in your head and talking that I do have sorrow and expressing it in a way that you can see it in your eyes that you do have a sorrow.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah.
It's and it's a great thing to talk about it. It's educational, but you got to show it, because there's more education in that. Because when you show it, people are going to respond to it, and that's going to teach you more about life. Yeah, there's the education right there. Yeah,
and the vulnerability we dare to show, because it takes bravery.
Sure.
Somebody can come and shoot you down.
Yeah.
And say that, don't be so weak.
Oh.
But I find in my head and in my life that the people who dare to show up and show me how they actually feel and what touches them, it's such a great gift of trust.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah. And it's the most beautiful thing when I can do this in a session with a client, when I give a massage, or I sit here and talk to you and we talk about really deep stuff.
Isn't this fun though? This therapy?
It's nourishing.
How many? I can't tell you how many times during this conversation I've gotten
goosebumps.
Yeah, the chills, the endorphin, the serotonin, the
oxytocin.
Oxytocin. Thank you. I almost said OxyContin. No, OxyContin is what killed my son. That's what killed my son.
Yes.
I do put my son's death. There's a therapeutic thing. I put as you heard that one night in my stand-up routine, I talk about it and put humor on it. That's a whole other thing. That's part of my therapeutic process. But yes, it was OxyContin that killed my son. OxyContin is an opiate. So we're talking about oxytocin.
Oxytocin, but it's a very strong drug as well. And we produce it every
absolutely, day. Yeah. But my point is having conversations like this, for me, is therapeutic, and I feel it, literally feel it physically. There's power in opening up and talking about these things. I've known you for 20 years, but I've never verbally expressed how much I respect you and like you and all that stuff until now. And that is a testament to the power of just sitting down and talking, whether it's on a podcast like this or whatever, in whatever situation, just talk, put your feelings out there. You might get hurt, but you probably won't.
Yeah.
You might get hurt, but you probably won't if you talk and share your feelings.
I find that the honesty in it throws people.
Oh, sure.
And it makes it very difficult to shoot you down.
I had a guy who, his name was Martin Hagfors. He is a very well-known Norwegian musician and songwriter. He's one of the most sought after songwriting partners in Norway.
Wow. He's
written with the Hellbillies and Olga Alexander, all kinds of people like that. When I first came here to Norway, I heard a song by the Hellbillies, which was a Norwegian translation of Martin's song that he wrote in English. It was my favorite Hellbilly song, and when I found out that it was actually written by this half American, half Norwegian guy, he was born in America. I said, I would love to meet that guy. So this is way back in 2002 when I first came here. And my respect for him just built over the years as I would hear more and more songs that this guy had written. And here about a month and a half ago, he was sitting right where you're sitting there. And I actually got to meet him. I had him come in. Now I call him friend and brother. But during that conversation, I told him, I said, above and beyond my starstruck, infatuation with your work and with you, talking with you now has taken all of that to a new level. Because now I see that you're a good person. And I could see the duality within him, the American side and the Norwegian side. The Norwegian side was incredibly embarrassed. And he said that on the microphone. Oh my gosh, John, stop it. You're embarrassing me. But my whole thing is, and this ties in with what we're doing now and what I was saying about conversation, I could tell, and I said that at the end of my conversation with Martin, and I could tell it did something with him. And it wasn't my intention to do anything other than express what I really felt about him and my instinct about what kind of a person he was after that conversation. And that conversation took him from someone who I idolized, in a sense, to someone who I idolized but also look at as a friend and brother. And I could see that did something with him, that I said that. And I think that's medicine. It's medicine for me to say that and to feel that, but it's also medicine for him to hear it.
Great medicine.
It does something with society. It does something with individuals.
Yeah, how many times are we not told the opposite, that we're not valuable or we do things wrong in that, and we really need to. And that's what's extra strong about and potent about being physically in the same room and seeing each other. And when I look at you and I say, you are such a great guy. And it feels so good to sit here and talk to you. I communicate something completely different than if I text you or we're on my phone, really. It's a bad habit, I think, that we've gotten into with our little devices and stuff. We'll text or we'll send something on Messenger, and we won't even really give a compliment. We'll just give an emoji or just a few words, nothing deep. And we send that, and that kind of counts. Yeah, but it doesn't. Unless you know, of course, that it's from your lover or whatever, and you know what's coming with it. Well, yeah, exactly. Or what's going to, if Snoopy sends me a message around 11 o'clock at night, I know what's going to happen when she. Now I'm kind of revealing, but you know what I mean. I get the real thing later. Yeah, that there's more to it than just the message. Right. There's a follow-up. But unfortunately, so many people are counting on social media with a text or something, and they're not expressing what needs to be. It's different when I look you, as you say, when I look you now and I say it. Yeah. It's different than getting it on a text. And when people actually do breakups on text message, isn't that something? That's because we're afraid. I realize that, but it's not very brave. Or is it? Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with bravery. Maybe it's just what's normal now. Because maybe some people don't even think about that it's cowardly or not brave. Maybe, but that's really sad to think about if that's the case. Yeah, but I think it is sad. I think this whole thing. See, and I'm thinking more and more about social media because I'm not on Facebook and Instagram anymore. No. Somebody hacked me and put some ugly content up. So Meta, as they're called, yanked my accounts for Facebook and Instagram. It's a almost impossible task to show them that I was hacked and it wasn't me who put this ugly content, which led to my being banned from those platforms. But I miss Facebook and Instagram for the marketing purposes. Yeah. I've noticed a slight dip in the number of downloads or views on my podcast. So I miss it for the marketing power as a platform. But
boy, I don't miss anything else.
You have much more freedom, don't you?
Because now I'm finding out that where I would have maybe just sent a funny picture and then typed in ha ha with the laughing face emoji to a friend. Now I'm picking up the phone and calling them, and they can hear my voice and I can hear theirs, and it gives so much more. So I've been thinking about this whole thing, this whole dynamic with social media on society, and there's some good things about it, but I think there's so much negative. I think it's really watering down our society when it comes to expression.
It's difficult to be aware of what is good and pick that out and neglect the stuff that's not good.
Well, what's scary is our opinions, our thoughts about what is good and what is not have changed because of social media. So,
what you can actually put out there? It's been a lot of like around the struggle between vaccinated and non-vaccinated within COVID. It was really fascistic or not, almost narcissistic, the way people stepped on each other for having so different opinions.
Friendships were lost.
Families broke up.
Families broke up. Can you imagine that?
And this happens on social media.
Yeah. Well, I've always said that social media is, for all the fun you can have on it, I was able to filter out all the negativity. In other words, if you're a negative person, I'm going to block you. I don't want to see that.
You don't pick up on that energy, no.
No, exactly. But what was sad was that, someone could type, for example, and this is among friends, you have a good community online, and you might type, I'm not getting vaccinated. And after that, there will be a discussion. And in that discussion, you may explain why you're not getting vaccinated. You might explain that it's because you have some sort of autoimmune deficiency that makes it actually dangerous for you to get a vaccine, or whatever. But people would just see, I'm not getting vaccinated, and unfriend.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what social media does is it takes away the opportunity for genuine communication. Because I can sit here with you and say, I'm not getting vaccinated. I am vaccinated, by the way, everybody, and booster shot. I'm just using this as an example. I'm like, because I can just see myself getting messages, John, why aren't you vaccinated?
Yeah. No. They'd be very frightened for your health.
But I could say I'm not getting vaccinated, and then what would happen in a real conversation? You would say, well, why not? And then we would have a discussion. We may agree or disagree, but there's no opportunity to misunderstand intent when you have a conversation. Whereas on social media, all the nuance, all the intent is gone. People will just see that post.
It's one-dimensional in a way.
Yeah.
There is no 3D or 5D or whatever.
And I think it's a sad, I believe so much in dialogue, and I think that social media is killing dialogue. We would not have this vaxxers versus anti-vaxxers. We would not have this Republican versus Democrat to the degree that it is in the States. We wouldn't have that stuff if we still spoke with one another and had a real dialogue. Yeah. But because social media makes us lazy communicators.
And then you have the media as well, for feeding on putting people up against each other.
Absolutely.
So it's helping it. Going
Unfortunately.
The wrong way.
Shame on you, media. I consider myself a media person. I communicate more opinion than news, but I do discuss certain news topics that are alive and well in society. So I consider myself a news source to a certain degree, and it's very important to point out that this is long form. We've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes right now. So now in that hour and 20 minutes, if you were to just make a post on social media, I'm a spiritual person. A lot of people would be like, ugh, that's weird.
What does that mean?
That's weird. Yeah, what is that? That's weird. But now in this hour and 20 minutes of conversation, people know what we're talking about when we're talking about being spiritual and being religious. And there's so much nuance that can be not only expressed, but understood with long-form dialogue. And I think that the problem with the mainstream news media is, if you were going to go on TV2 to talk about spirituality, you would get at the most 4 minutes.
That's quite a long time, actually, for media, isn't it? I mean, on Facebook and Instagram, you have 20 seconds before people lose interest. So
yeah,
but still, it's very short.
Well, yeah. And what I was going to say is, you might get 4 minutes, and you might have, whoever the news anchor is, they have a set of questions, and there's a purpose behind those questions, and that purpose behind those questions may not match with your purpose as one who wants to communicate your spirituality. Or your whatever, your political view, or whatever reason you're on there for. So I think that there's levels to communication about things. I think social media is the worst. Mainstream media is better because you get a little bit more time. But if you ask me, there's nothing that beats this. Live conversation, whether it's on a podcast or whether it's just, without the headphones and the microphone. But why? I guess the question is, why is social media taking over the dialogue?
I don't know.
It's such a strange thing.
I think it's because we're not conscious about it. I think we're not stopping, evaluating, thinking, feeling. We're
in such a hurry.
Yeah, we're in a hurry, and it's a quick fix. It's an easy solution. That, as I brought up, that my new thing is to start holding circles.
Talk about that, because I think it's cool.
It's not a new thing at all, but actually it's becoming more and more potent worldwide, which is cool.
But for you, it's relatively new. You've only been doing this for what?
Well, the last 1.5 years.
1.5 years, 18 months, yeah.
Yeah. But that's also because I've been in circles. And what does that mean? Okay, people sit down and meet. It's a ceremony sometimes. It's ritual. It's a spiritual experience, but it has a lot to do with learning about oneself. So a very big part of it is to share my thoughts and my feelings about a particular subject, for instance. And there you have maybe one time when I was with the Holistic Forbund, we had 15 minutes in dialogue where you're not supposed to respond. I'm just supposed to speak. Silent listening. And just sharing on a topic that we were told to share about. And all the things that I found out about myself through those 15 minutes, because I was allowed to just talk from the heart, and I wasn't stopped. I was more or less just acknowledged for everything. No judgment, just acceptance.
So did you find yourself saying things that you wish you had kind of acknowledged within yourself before?
Or maybe
was this like a new revelation for you?
It just became more true.
Okay.
Or more up in the conscious mind.
Yeah.
Because you were just droodling on a subject,
I understand.
In a way, and
I
it just
gotcha.
bloop.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I found was very therapeutic, actually, in those circles, that
Very
we get
interesting.
to talk about things that matter.
Yeah.
And there's nobody telling you that what you're thinking is wrong or what you're expressing is wrong. Of course, if you said that you wanted to kill somebody and do it, that would be a problem. So we're not but it's more like, one question could be, what is spirituality for you? Yeah. And you actually get to sit there with the focus and energy from another person spurring you on to really dig into, what is spirituality for me? And you get to know yourself through being listened to. And the power that the person that managed to just sit and listen gives. Because sitting there with your own mind and your own thoughts on
there's no reinforcement there. There's
nothing holding it.
Yeah.
But there's actually somebody listening who's interested, and it gives it a different flow, a different depth.
Well, it makes it more valid.
Yeah.
This thing that I've been thinking, maybe uncertain about it. Now when I vocalize it, there's people here listening. Maybe nodding their head a little bit, or at least giving you that good feeling of being heard.
Yeah. And the thing about being heard, for things that you might not even recognize and honestly think that you think. It's a very good feeling.
Sure it is. Absolutely.
And it's very strengthening for the soul, if you could call it that.
Yeah.
Nourishing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And again, something we don't do. If we sat down around the table and you ask your children, how was your day? You do it.
Yeah.
You know. But again, we're going back to that. Not many people have the time to do that because they keep rushing off to all the other activities they have.
It's you're kind of touching on why a big reason why I do this podcast. You know, this isn't a formal ceremony, so to speak, but it is ceremonial in the sense that I am opening up this platform for my guest to say whatever's on their heart. Mm. And the intention is, and I deliberately don't tell people this ahead of time, but I invite a guest on because they inspire me, they motivate me in some way, or I feel I can learn something from them. And then I have an almost just as strong desire for my listeners. I guess I'm a little selfish because this is mostly for me, but I'm also hoping that my listeners hear something that can inspire them, lift them up, motivate them. Mm. And there is a certain amount of, we have the candles, I've dimmed the overhead lights and everything. And I try to put it into this relaxed, ceremonial, if you will, atmosphere, where my guest feels like they're going to be heard. And I feel like I'm going to be heard as well, but it's a two-way street, and that's what dialogue is all about. There is something ceremonial, there's something powerful about real dialogue, and sometimes dialogue is where only one person is talking. The person who's listening in these ceremonies that you're talking about, they're not saying anything, but they are giving in the spirit of dialogue, in the sense that they are listening without interrupting, and here I am talking forever, I interrupt.
They have presence.
Exactly. And they're giving you a chance to say what you feel, what you think, and now you're putting words on it. And there's something in that neurological triangle that takes it from a feeling to a thought to being verbalized. And there's empowerment in that triangle, I believe.
It's very, in a way, it's humbling to be in that room with many people getting that power.
Now, is this how organized is this? Do you guys set this up at regular intervals, or?
I'm very sort of in the beginning again now, because I had a few of these at home in my apartment in Sande, and then I sold that, and now I don't really have the space. But I wish to I have an agreement with Aquarius Studiecenter in Drammen, so I wish to start the circles here in Drammen.
Oh, yeah, that's here on the Strømsø side.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, on Bragernes, actually. They moved.
What was I thinking of? Okay, yeah.
But anyway, and I wish to start with women's circles because I am a woman.
Yeah.
But I am so lucky to have a partner who also wished to facilitate circles, and we hope to be able to do that as a couple, because holding space for a man is not really my job. I mean, you have other needs of being seen, and there's nothing wrong about acknowledging that.
No.
And I think that if we are just women together in a circle, there are some things that we feel freer to talk about.
Sure.
And actually do. Sometimes, we dance, or because it's also an embodiment, and that's a way to integrate something when you physically move. So it's important as well, not just to talk, but also to move.
Absolutely.
And I can't sit still. But I wish to have it as a once in a month or every 4 weeks, because it's a process, and it's getting to trust being in a circle and realizing what it actually can do for you.
That's a new kind of therapy session.
Yes, and it's not therapy, because everybody's responsible for their own emotions, and that is the therapy. Nobody's going to fix you.
No, it's a self-therapeutic, self-therapy, absolutely. Yeah.
So, and listening to like sharing, for instance, between women, the trauma of having a period that doesn't stop bleeding. For instance, if I just took this one out, there is recognition in that, and maybe there's some solutions as well.
Yeah.
So being able to talk about that, or being allowed to express that I feel shame about something, or in my case, I've never really had any friends that were women until.
Okay.
So I do have friends, but I didn't have many because I found that women are undermining, jealous bitches. That was my opinion because I always ended up in a triangle with two girlfriends when I was younger, and I was the one that was sorted out.
That is that thing is so prevalent among young teenage girls. That little that triangle of three friends, very good. And then the one ends up being the Oh.
So for me, I've never really trusted women.
No.
And I never shown my vulnerability to women in properly.
Yeah.
And I've been able to take that back now because I have found maybe my tribe a bit more, and other women who actually are not girls anymore, but starting to become women, and who's learned the hard way of how to be honest and open and supportive to other women.
So it's only now or fairly recently that you started to find like-minded females.
Yeah, because I always managed to talk to men and boys before that.
I have way more female contacts than male. I mean, it's not even close.
Yeah,
that definitely goes back to my childhood. Is yours? You said earlier that you're lacking significant female role models in your family. Is that a childhood
in general?
Or did you mean in general? Did you mean in your family?
Totally. I mean, my mother's a wonderful woman, but I don't think she had any female role models either.
Yeah.
And in a way, I've been making myself my own female role model, and the only one I could really trust into is, for me, the Mother Earth. That's the total female for me. And what is it that the Earth gives?
Yeah.
That's my role model at the moment. But no, I didn't really have any outstanding person that I thought, this is a woman I want to be.
Yeah.
I didn't have that. I picked a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah.
And tried to piece myself together.
Yeah.
And I hope, I have two girls, I hope that for somewhere along the line, I'll be some kind of role model for them.
Oh, I can't imagine you not being a role model for your girls.
Thank you. But yeah.
Gosh, I haven't seen them since they were, well, actually, the only one of your daughters that I have seen is Siobhan.
You haven't met Sunny?
I don't think so.
Wow. Yeah, you have, because we were on the hut up by the fjord once.
That's right.
Yeah, you still haven't met her, but they've changed quite a lot.
Oh, I can imagine.
you and Sunny would have a lot to talk about. She's a power lifter almost.
Is she really?
Yeah,
Is she in a club?
No.
Where's she living now?
Sande.
She should join Sande Styrkeløft Club. The powerlifting club in Sande is probably the best one in the country.
I know.
They have so many champions that come out of there. Male, female, old, young.
I know people come from far to train with them.
Absolutely, they do.
She's sticking to her own thing at the moment, but she's a
she
feisty little thing. Yeah. I'm very proud of her as well.
Like her mother, feisty little thing. No, it's. I think a big part of how we adults spend our life, and you tell me if you don't agree, but I think we adults spend such large moments or large portions of our life trying to be better than what we experienced from our childhood. Right or wrong?
Yeah, I think I hope that's right in a way, because
it is progress, isn't it?
Yeah, I saw one of these drawings once that I really... You've seen a drawing about the human evolving from the ape.
Like crawling and
then you have the different one where you have what's happened in society. You have the male or female parent telling their child to get it together and stand up for yourself and don't be such a pussy. And then you have the next one saying, be kind, be a bit more gentle.
Yeah.
And then the next is, I love you,
Yeah.
and I'm proud of you. Yeah. Almost like that. And I'm thinking that's what we're doing, I hope. I have a lot less to deal with than my parents had. Yeah. I know, and I told my mother this, I am quite impressed of how they managed to move from what they were brought up in to what they gave me.
Right.
I didn't see that as a child, but now that I'm a mother myself and I look back and I understand
upon reflection, you see.
They were given shame, they were given guilt, they were given no feelings, in many ways, because that's what it was like to, my grandmother was told that children should just be changed nappies and breastfed and lay on their own for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And that's how my mother was raised, in a way. And they gave me value by, I knew that they loved me. There's a lot of things we do wrong as parents, but I knew that I know that my parents love me.
Yeah.
They didn't say it that much.
No.
And they didn't maybe hug me that much, but I knew it. And now I get to say to my children in abundance that I love you, I'm proud of you. And they just, I know. but I think, and I know from my heart that it's going to be so good for them.
Oh, sure. They're going to remember the words, the gestures, especially the gestures. I tell Snoopy, I've never vocalized this to our two kids, but I make it my business every day to make them not just smile, but laugh. And I want that laughter to always come from something I have said, but preferably from something that I have done as a gesture of love. I do that every single day. That's the most important job. That's the most important job I have. Not this, not my writing and all that. That's the most important job I have. And I, of course, do that for Snoopy as well. Every day. It's the communication of sincere feelings. And again, preferably not by word, but by something I've done. Every day.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
But I think it's important to thank you. but I think it's important to take tasks like that.
Yeah.
Incorporate that into our life and make sure that it is a daily thing. And to put something beautiful and positive out there, because everybody can do that. We can do that.
Yeah, and when we're 2-year-old, the only thing we can do is tip things over. As we grow, we start to build. Yeah, and that is what we can do. And raising people up instead of stepping on them, that is quite a task, actually, because it's so easy to rip things down.
Well, I think it's our duty as adults. You had you said you knew that your parents loved you, but not all of us, in our generation, had parents who loved us. No. Okay, so that's a fact. So what happens with that fact? Does it wall us in and not allow us to do the opposite, put love out there instead of the lack of love that some of us experienced? Or does that lack of love instill in us a mission to do the exact opposite, find ways to put love out there?
I think that's a very, very big choice to make, personally.
It's a big choice to make, but I think once the choice is made, the action is quite easy. If you choose to not do anything to, there was a vacuum of love in your childhood, and if you choose to allow that vacuum to continue with your children, okay, that's once you've made that decision, it's easy to do. Just don't show your children that you love them. Simple. But I think it's also equally simple if you decide to actively do what you can to put love and understanding and dialogue out there. Once you make that decision, that may take years, but there's the difficulty. The difficulty is coming to a conclusion to make a decision. But once the decision is made, it is so easy to put love out there. It's so easy to engage in productive dialogue. I think it is. It doesn't take much.
No, but I think for many people, it takes a little drop at the time, often, so that you get out of, because you have to jump.
Sure.
In the
Sure.
beginning, you have to really jump.
Well, sure.
To break
You're
the walls.
incorporating a new habit.
Yeah.
You're changing your lifestyle, if you will, and it demands focus. But again, if after a longer period of introspection and thought around that issue, if you come to that conclusion to put love and positivity out there, yes, it doesn't mean that it's just going to happen. No, you have to work at it, but that work becomes easy. That work becomes something that you enjoy because you like the results of it for yourself and for others. And then after a while it becomes a habit and you don't even have to think about it anymore. It's not an issue.
No.
It's just your life.
Lifestyle.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I have a... it makes me think about something my man says. Don't tell me, or actually he wrote a poem about it.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that I can't love others if I don't love myself.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of talk about that. You have to love yourself to be able to love others.
Yeah.
But maybe I can learn to love myself through loving others.
That's true. That's very true.
Because what we're discussing now is if you come from a home where you don't feel loved, then you most likely don't feel that you can love yourself.
Yeah.
But you can practice.
Absolutely.
And loving others and feeling how that makes you feel and see how they beam when you give them that attention and that love.
Well, that comes from that old proverb that we all know, regardless of religion or spirituality, that says, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there are people who have, I may die and never have the self-image that I should have. But by God, I'm going to have fun on that journey, working on that self-image. And yes, part of working on one's self-image is putting that positivity and love that you lack for yourself out there for others. Absolutely.
And giving acceptance and giving love, it's easier to give to yourself as well.
It becomes that with time.
Because you see that others deserve it.
Yeah.
And flourish in it.
Sure.
And well, hopefully at least it's a little bit easier to accept that I'm not a god. I'm also human.
Yeah.
I have the same faults as the other people that I do love.
So it's a combination of humility and loving oneself. But I think it gets easier with practice. I always like to put things in terms of training. Whether it's training for strength or training for self-acceptance. It's a matter of repetition over time.
And you need quite a lot of repetition before it
repetition
becomes
over time, yeah. And sometimes you may get lucky and you may fix yourself, in a matter of whatever. But oftentimes it takes years. It may take a lifetime, and you may die feeling as if you never quite love yourself the way you should. But in that journey, it sure is putting a lot of love out there for others, I think.
And it does help a lot to surround yourself with people who actually do love you.
Yeah.
And open up for that.
I think so. Yeah.
So if you don't, that's a different part of it as well. You have to open up to receive love.
Yeah.
That is actually something you do.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
In many cases, because we may not have really received it in big
right.
quantities
So
before.
again, it's that conscious action.
Yeah.
You're setting yourself in motion, You can't sit back and wait for it. You have to make it happen.
Yeah, and you have to take the chance of being hurt.
Yeah.
Of
Ouch.
course.
Back to that pain thing.
Yes. But I actually had a picture once during a meditation where we could see our heart as like a physical heart.
Yeah.
That was made like a cage almost. And I inserted a key into my heart, the lock in my heart, and I opened it, and I opened the door to sort of make a picture of what I wish to do. I want to be vulnerable. I want to be open.
Yeah.
Yes, I need to learn when to protect myself.
Yeah.
We always have to.
Sure.
But I cannot stay in the protection. I can feel it when my walls come up now. I know that I am protecting myself, and I can choose, is this what I should do now?
Yeah.
Or no, I will not do this now. I want to feel this. I want to be with this.
But see, there's the power of visualization. You visualize the heart and the key, visualizing it, and then incorporating introspection, where you're looking. What happened to my sound here? All of a sudden I got loud in my ears. That combination of visualizing something in a metaphorical way while you engage in introspection, in other words, examining yourself. Where are you in this process? Visualizing the path, and are you strong enough to walk that path? Maybe not. Maybe you need to make a different path. Visualization and introspection. Again, I prescribe it to myself. I write out a little prescription to myself. I have to do that for 10 minutes every single day. And it could be on various topics, but it is that combination of visualizing and introspection every day for at least 10 minutes. Period, regardless of what's happening. It has to be done.
I'm very impressed.
It's well, thank you.
Not
thank
because
you. But it
takes discipline.
Well,
Because you have to be strict with yourself.
Well, sure, but again, the discipline. Yes, it takes more discipline in the beginning because you have to get started, and that's you're trying to incorporate something new into your life. But once you get into it, and you start to see and feel and live the benefits of it, where is the effort? It's effortless. It's as easy as breathing. Breathing keeps me alive. Well, this visualization and introspection, this daily routine, breathes another kind of life into the life that I have.
Yeah.
So it becomes just as important, but just as easy to conduct. So, impressive, yeah, maybe in the beginning because it took a total change of thought process, but now it's as easy as breathing.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the start of actually changing things and holding yourself to your own promise and doing what you're. Yeah,
because there's no one there to push you to do that. You have to do it yourself.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't really want to look at yourself because it's not.
Oh, it's not easy.
No,
it's not easy.
I don't like this shitty part of me.
Well,
I'm not proud of this. Or
the thing is to learn how to accept that you don't like the shitty parts of you. It also involves enjoying. Again, back to enjoying the challenge, looking forward to the challenge of changing those shitty parts of yourself. Enjoy that. It's going to hurt. You're going to sweat, but enjoy it. And again, I put that in the same context as training for powerlifting. If I can do that for myself physically, I can certainly do this and incorporate it to change myself mentally and emotionally, spiritually. It's all connected. I think, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It's all connected.
But it's the same process.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's very simplified to say it like this verbally because I don't want to sound glib or flippant about it because it is a process that is difficult in the beginning. But again, with time and with repetition, it becomes easier, just like anything else.
And of course, if you can actually feel the effect.
Yes,
and it's a good one. It's like,
look at it as,
it gives you so much that you don't want to miss out on it in the end.
Yeah. If you're going to start jogging, for example, when you first do it, it sucks. You don't want to do it. It hurts, especially the first day or after you wake up from the first day, which makes it incredibly difficult to jog for the next day. But all of a sudden, after a relatively short period of time, getting up and going jogging on a daily basis or however many times a week, it becomes something you look forward to. And that is because you can very clearly see and feel and live the results, the changes that you brought about. So, again, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, it's all intertwined and we can work on all of them by using the same devices.
And then it comes up this is what we're talking about. Would you and me agree?
Yeah.
But I see over and over again people who does this.
Yes.
And then they stop it.
Yes. Why do you think that is?
I do it myself in some things.
We all do. Yeah.
And it's really...
What is that anyway?
Yeah, what is that? Is that laziness of some sort?
It can be in the sense that we don't want to put forth the effort to bring about the change that we really want.
Yeah. And sometimes
That's lazy.
maybe
That's a certain type of laziness. Yeah.
And I know for my sake, sometimes it's a bit of I'm a bit afraid of this change.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say it has to do with fear of the change itself, or fear of what it's going to take to bring about the change. Fear of the discomfort along the path to that result.
And also, I'm maybe not thinking about it right physically now, but if I do change myself emotionally, my needs change, my responsibility change.
Well, yeah, and all of those are things that
maybe a bit heavy.
Yeah, it is very heavy. But again, the more often we experience struggle or pain, whether it's physical, emotional, whatever, the more we know that we can overcome it, which makes these changes easier. Again, with time and repetition, all things become easier, including change. You may not realize it, but I bet if you sat with a good coach, no, I am a good coach. Okay. No, but if you sat with a good coach, they would be able to guide you towards realizing that you are much stronger than you think. I think you know you're strong, but I think you're missing out on a little bit of your strength because you haven't realized it, you haven't admitted it, you haven't accepted it maybe. But you as a person who has been through, I'm giving you life coaching here, but you and I hope that's okay.
Yeah, fine.
But you as a person who has met so many crossroads, that should tell you that you can do any doggone thing you want. You can change anything you want about yourself. Those ugly bits of Trine that you don't like, that maybe I and others don't even see, but you know it's there. When you realize all of the crossroads you've been through, and each crossroad has not led you backwards or even to the side, it's led you forwards. You know, I know you enough to know that. And if you know that yourself and you recognize that and remind yourself of it, Trine, you can do anything you want. You can bring about any change in your life that you desire.
Yeah.
And it really is that straightforward and that simple, because you have had so much repetition of change. This thing called change has happened so much in your life. You're good at it. You can do it. You can tolerate the struggle and the pain that it takes to bring about change. Dr. John says.
Dr. John says. Okay. So I'd like to thank you for your sound advice. And I know it. But my problem is, and this is very personal and maybe not what most people experience.
Yeah.
I know that I can do anything, more or less. But it's a lot of responsibility, and that's what I'm struggling with at the moment.
Well, yeah, but that's you fear the responsibility.
Taking on the job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's what I'm talking about. You have some of these changes that you've had in your life have led to new responsibility. I mean, each change in your life has led to an incredible change in the amount of responsibility you've had, whether it's in your work life, your love life, your role as a mother for your children. It has brought about new enormous changes in levels of responsibility, but you've done it.
Yeah.
So when you say you fear the responsibility, or it's the responsibility that keeps you from incorporating new changes now, why? Because you've done it before.
Yeah, but okay, we're still very personal. So no, the thing is, my getting to work and starting to cry and not stopping was about I can't do anymore at the moment. Yeah. So I'm still a bit down in that hole. Yeah. Where it's so nice, and I think everybody needs this, so I'm giving myself this. It's so nice to not have that much responsibility.
That's true. We all need a break. Yeah, we have to breathe. Yes.
And my break has become quite long now.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to learn a different way of carrying responsibility as well.
But how can you do that when you're not doing anything to bring about more responsibility?
Well, I do. You know, I can't sit still, so I do.
So yeah.
So I do things that, of course, demand that I take responsibility. Yeah. But it's, I have, again, back to masculine and feminine for me, I have a more or less masculine way of taking on responsibility. Okay. You know, I'm very good at logistics and planning and making structure and going out there. Yeah. To bring in. And there is a different way of doing things, and I'm trying to experience it and learn it, and that is to get things to flow.
Okay.
And I'm talking about something I haven't understood myself yet, so please excuse me.
Ah.
But I do notice that this is also very personal, but for when I was dating for a while.
We get personal.
Yeah, very
on this.
personal.
We do.
I was dating for a while, and I've always been very Norwegian in equality. So I never, I went on a date, we both paid, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then I sort of thought, nope, I'm going to change this. Darn.
Yeah.
I want to be treated differently. I want to feel like I'm a woman.
Ah.
When I go on a date next time, I'm not going to pay anything. He's going to be a perfect gentleman and take good care of me because that's what I want now. And it worked. But not because I pushed it through.
Yeah.
It's a different energy. That's what I'm trying to get a hold of. This making things happen without struggling and fighting for it, and more like opening up to it and letting it become.
There is a phenomenon, a mental health phenomenon that you see it a lot in children. And if it's not addressed, it will stay with them as an adult, where, everybody has a fight or flight response but in this case, with this mental health phenomenon, children, teenagers, and even adults will unnecessarily display the fight response.
Mm.
Could that be something that's happening here?
I need to,
you know what I mean?
I need to twist my head around what it is, but I am used to going out and getting what I want.
Yeah, but okay, and that demands a certain amount of aggressiveness. Yes. In other words, you have to fight for it.
Yep.
So then, again,
because I don't really expect anything to come to me on its own. Maybe I don't even deserve it to come to me on its own.
Well, so I would wonder, and part of the fight response, it doesn't mean necessarily aggression, but it can also mean extreme defensiveness. Mm. You see what I'm saying? So I'm wondering.
Yeah, because that is the defense. The fact that in most of my life, I have never really believed that I'm entitled to any particular.
So I would say that you've been in a perpetual fight response.
Yeah, in a way, you could say that. Yeah, I can own that. But I wish to, that's the job I'm doing now. I'm changing it because it's wearing me out. I've spent it.
Yeah,
I don't really have that much left of it.
That's why you've been on a sabbatical, a well-deserved and wisely taken sabbatical for the last
2 years,
18 months at least. Yeah. But I want to ask you something about these ceremonies. What do you call it? It's a group. It's called.
Now for this, the women groups, kvinnecirkler. That's I just call it women's circle.
The women's circle.
Yeah, but that's my.
And you put the word out on social media that this is happening and people are responding and people are coming to be a part of this.
Yeah, I wish there were more coming, but I think that this is something I feel in my gut that this is something we really need, all people.
Oh, sure.
We need this talk that we're having now.
Yeah.
We need this feeling of community and equality.
Yeah.
And being able to be naked without showing the skin with other people because it heals us.
Sure.
But I also think that it's a very strange idea for many people. And
it is.
We don't trust that it can be done.
It's a word of mouth type of thing.
Yeah.
You have to hear it from somebody that you trust.
Yeah. And
somebody has to tell you that they did this. They were a part of this and here's what it did for me. And then
you have to say, I will give it a try.
Yeah.
Because it takes courage to try something that is a bit challenging.
And Norwegians are quite, again, talking about all things religious and or spiritual, and this is definitely in the spiritual category of happenings, if you will. If Norwegians see this being advertised for, they're going to be like,
Yeah.
It's that Norwegian skepticism that comes to life.
Yeah, I think
at something like that.
I think it is, and it's a lot of the things that the practices we use in the circle derives from tantric yoga.
Yeah,
and that has in the West, and especially in Norway, become a sex orgy thing, and that's a problem. So I don't really use that word because
people will misconstrue.
They misunderstand completely.
Yeah.
But it has to, in Zen and in Tantra as well. They say that you can become enlightened living a normal life. You don't have to sit in a cage.
Yeah.
Cave. Well, you don't have to. You should definitely not sit in a cage. But the thing is, you get to know yourself through getting to know others. We mirror each other.
Yes.
And I cannot become a complete person on my own. I need others to mirror me. And I think that's what happens in the circle. That's the healing or nurturing that I find. That I don't recognize myself in everything.
No.
But there are some really good bits.
Well, I would imagine it's a wonderful two-way street to be in a circle like that, because of course it's going to do tremendous things for you to be able to speak and just be heard.
Yeah. And knowing that I'm not alone in this feeling.
Well, yeah. And then the other side is, and here's the two-way street side, is to be the person who's actually sitting and listening to someone talk. Excuse me. What an experience that is.
And there's so much going on inside of yourself when you just sit and listen.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because it triggers, as you say, you're doing active introspection when we're talking. Yeah. And that's, so it's a two-way happening.
It's a very powerful two-way street.
And we use simple things like something called eye gazing.
Eye gazing.
Actually look into each other's eyes.
Yeah.
And it's done research on this, so that's cool. That's why I picked this one up, because it's actually been researched. If you and I look into each other's eyes for 30 seconds or more, our brain waves starts to become more like
a symbiosis. Yeah.
Which means it's more likely that I will understand you and open up to you and find your ideas more. Well,
and there's the beauty of direct dialogue rather than doing it on social media or even over the telephone. There's just something different when you can actually see the person. I think, of course, a big part of that is the eye contact. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I did it for a while. I had some online yoga.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. And it was actually, it was good, but I missed being with people. And I missed, it's not just the eyes, it's how you sit, how you move, what kind of energy you exude.
During the lockdown, pretty much all of 2020 and 2021, I got a lot of offers to do stand-up online. And I said no every time. I've got to see the people. Yeah. I've got to smell the sweat. I've got to feel
the impact or no impact.
Yeah, I need that. There's something that's dead with that communication process that happens during stand-up comedy. It's dead if they're not there. I couldn't imagine doing it. No offense to those who did, but for me, I just couldn't see myself doing that.
No, if you have an audience at least, and then film, that's different. But
say that again now?
Yeah, if you had an audience and then filmed and put it online,
that's different.
Yeah.
That's different.
But standing on your own, I can imagine.
I couldn't sit here in my studio here and do stand up for people who are wherever on video.
Because we play on the reactions we get.
Sure.
In every way.
I'll tell you, the show that you saw me do, that was at a point where I was still relatively new to stand up, but I had about 25 minutes of written material. Do you know how much of that material I did? Maybe 5 minutes.
Oh, so everything more or less was improvised.
Because of how the crowd reacted.
Yeah.
Because of looks on their faces, because of the fact that it was a largely Persian audience. And I started making fun of, what did I say? I said, whoever's in charge of the lights, can you turn the lights down? There's a huge reflection off of the grease and gold chains out there in the audience. And then I love my Persian brothers and sisters. I was the opening act for Babek Namati, who is Persian. So okay, so
then of course he opened and he had already sort of warmed up the audience. Yes. So you had to keep going on that line.
Exactly. So it's feeding off of that. I have a different kind of podcast when the guest is here, as opposed to the guest being on video, as opposed to me just doing a solo episode.
They're very different.
Very different. It's because of the personal interaction. So I could see this thing, a ceremony or in a circle like that, but I could see that being so giving because you guys are meeting there for the purpose of
meeting properly,
of dialogue, of sharing and stuff. You're there
but you're
for
definitely invited when we start to do for both.
Yeah.
Couples are welcome.
No, but it's again, it goes back to the power of dialogue. I'm such a believer in dialogue. This whole thing with dialogue, my podcast is what has gotten me up and on my feet after losing my son. So I know there's healing in dialogue. I know that there's purpose. You can find purpose through dialogue. You can definitely meet friends or reconnect with old friends through dialogue. And it's a beautiful thing.
And it's so, I find it so important now for me in my life to make that space happen. Where,
and that's
where
the beauty
there is
of
a safe
and
haven.
that's the beauty of it, where you're actually gathering people for that specific purpose.
And then you go through certain, small rituals to get the mindset put so that everybody can relax. We have certain rules.
So it's a very structured.
Yeah, it is structured and at the same time very flowing. And that's again, back to masculine and feminine, because if you want the flow, if you want people to relax and open, you have to have a framework that holds it. So, for instance, you're not allowed to talk about what happens with the others and what others talk about outside the group. And we honor that.
I have a friend, I haven't spoken to her in over a year, Caroline Hargreaves is her name, Norwegian lady who actually left the, not the corporate world, but the that quasi-political diplomat world to, and I almost said pursue, but she's not pursuing anything. She found this whole thing about part of what she does is she'll have like a circle, but out in nature.
Yeah.
Over a day or two or however long.
Like a retreat.
Very much like a retreat. She's very much the interesting person when it comes to discussing the differences and similarities between the masculine and the feminine, and nature and nurture and spirituality. So she's doing. You know, I guess what I'm saying is there's more people doing these types of things, having these meetings, these gatherings of people to just express themselves, that it may not be as hard to advertise for it as you think. But the question is still how to get more people when we know that there's this amount of skepticism that's out there. How can we get the word out that these kind of things are happening so that there's more participation?
It might be that the skepticism is within me as well.
Maybe there's not as much skepticism as we're talking about. Maybe this is our own preconceived notions.
Yeah, because I know that I know that I see this need everywhere. But am I a bit skeptical that people will embrace the opportunity? So I always try to go within. What is it I'm sending out? That's
true. Yeah.
As again, the new way of taking responsibility, not necessarily by saying do this and put that there, but okay, what is it I am communicating? Is it my own doubt? Is it my own skepticism?
That may very well be. In my case, maybe I am just projecting my own doubt and skepticism. Well, one thing is to wonder about it, but another thing is to actually, for example, with Facebook ads. If you were to just take a budget of 500 kroners and do a Facebook ad that goes over a 3-week period, and just for the Drammen area, that 500 kroners might get you
quite far.
Hundreds of responses. Just based on my experience with Facebook ads, a small budget like that can bring about huge response for different things. You never know.
No, I think it's the next step to really dare to, as I said before, you asked how do I introduce you, and I said I'm daring to call myself a priestess these days, and it's a dare.
You have to dare yourself,
Yeah, and it's what do people put in that? What do people actually explain in their head when I say that word? But holding the space, and I've chosen to call what I'm doing the temple of the goddess, Gudinetempelet. And it doesn't have anything to do with church or temple in that way, but for me, temple is holding the space for something spiritual to happen. And it's a container in a way. And for me, it is a lot about the feminine qualities. That's why I refer to the goddess. And it's not because there is a deity.
Right.
It's more like I wish to make space for feminine values.
I can't imagine that there wouldn't be a large amount of people who would like to get on board with that. It's just that the challenge is letting them know about it.
Yeah.
Letting them know that there is this space that you have where these kind of things can happen.
Yeah.
But that's good medicine though for society. Like you said, we need that. We need it.
Yeah, I
there's
know
more people
that I need it, and that's why I think I want to give this because I need it. I need to have these conversations that we have because it nurtures me.
Yeah.
And it makes me a whole person.
Yeah.
And I need to have those. I set up a system so that I have those conversations regularly. And of course, even though I have a partner and I have children that I can actually talk to, I am so blessed that I can have these deep conversations with. There is something different when you're bringing new people. And there also is something in me that always wanted to hold other people in this space. That's why I'm a therapist. That's why I'm a teacher. And it feels natural for me to arrange for it to happen.
Yeah.
And I know, this is not very Norwegian, but I know that I do it well.
Yeah.
I know that I can create a space where this is the right thing to.
You do it well. That is, and shame on me for not expressing it 20 years ago. But you do those things well. The caring and the givingness within you shows. People see it. Like I said, Snoopy and I talk about it all the time. Now, she's very Norwegian, so she's probably never going to tell you that. But we talk about you a lot. And I, like I said, I just admire the way you live your life. It's always, since day one, been inspiring to me. So there you go. Take that with you. Let me ask you something as we wind this up. Let's take the last 5 or 10 minutes. I always ask my guests to do 2 things for me. Okay? The first thing I would like for you to do for me is I'm going to say 3 words, and then I want you to finish the sentence.
Okay.
Just 1 sentence.
Okay.
And take as long as you need to think about it. My viewers and listeners will tolerate silence if you have to think for a while. Okay? You ready?
Yeah.
Trine Sveia is. She's thinking, everybody.
I am very happy and content right now.
Happy and content right now. So there was a positive affirmation and it was placed in the moment. Well, I guess I should say thank you because I might have something to do with that.
You definitely do.
Thank you. And then the last thing I like to ask of you, like I said, I never speak on it with my guests beforehand, but they always find out that I invited them on because they inspired me, because they motivate me, and because I can learn something. And as I said, I want my guests to be inspired, to learn something, to be motivated by my guests. What can you say to my viewers and listeners that can help them as they go through this thing called life? Is there something you can say to lift them, make their steps a little bit lighter on their path as they move through this life?
Well, what comes to me is be gentle with yourself. And breathe.
Doesn't that make everything a little easier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds so simple, but it isn't simple. Being gentle with oneself is very difficult.
Yeah.
And breathing is something we forget all the time.
Oh, Don't we always? Yeah.
Hold our breath, or we just breathe up in the top.
Yeah.
So just a really,
Yeah.
and it does something very, very concrete, physical.
Very often people, if people think about breathing, they think it's, like you said, this thing that just happens in this part of the body, like from the neck to the navel. But breathing should incorporate every aspect of the body, from the toes to the top of the head.
And it makes you tingle if you do it properly.
Oh, absolutely. It makes me tingle just thinking about it. Well, I want to say this again, Trine. I want to say thank you for coming on. I can't believe this hasn't happened sooner, but it's happened now, so that's a good thing.
It's supposed to happen now, I think.
And yeah, exactly. It happened now because this is when it was supposed to happen. You know where we live, so you're always welcome here, whether it's with headphones and a microphone or not. But I definitely want to have you back as a guest, because you're doing such interesting things and you're such an interesting person. And I want to check in with you in a few weeks, a month, whenever the spirit moves us. I want to talk with you again and see what's happening in your life, because I think you do a lot of things that people can identify with. Maybe not directly, but I think they can pull out little snippets of your experience and apply it to their life. I think that that's part of your purpose. I think that's part of the reason why we're talking here today. I think people were meant to hear what you're doing and apply it to their own lives. I just have that feeling.
You touched me very well.
Well,
very deeply.
and likewise.
It's been very, very good to be here.
It's been very good to have you here. Like I say, we're going to have to do this again. I want to follow up on this. It's been fun.
Fun is maybe a strange word, but it's as I said,
Again,
I feel nourished and happy, content.
I think dialogue is fun because it isn't it fun to be more of everything that is good about us, and that's what dialogue does.
You get all these other ideas popping in. Well,
sure. I think that having spoken with you now, I'm going to have a better day than if I hadn't spoken with you. So fun. That's exactly what that means.
And I'm bringing this into, I'm collaborating with some other women from the Americas actually to create more strong circles.
Okay.
So I'm going to bring this energy in with them and then tell them
there you go.
I was really heard today. And it was wonderful.
Well, again, that's why I brought you in. This is the experience that I wanted. This is the experience that I knew that we could have by talking. So
thank you, John.
Yeah. Listen, everybody. Where can people find you on Instagram? What is it? It's at, and then just your name, at Trine Sveia.
Yeah. It's my name.
Check the description of this episode, people, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on one of the podcast platforms. Check the description. I'll put a link to Trine's Instagram. This lady is doing good works. She is, and we love her to death. We love you to death in this home. You're one of us. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.